Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Behind the Small Business Podcast. My name is Kevin Dandino, and of course, this is all brought to you by Centennial State Insurance Agency. Today, I have two special guests, both Mark and Kim out in Bailey, who own not only their own businesses, but are president and vice president of the Chamber of Commerce out in Bailey, Colorado. So we're going to hear a lot about their stories of their own personal business and then what they're doing within the chamber to help bolster all the other businesses in their community. So guys, Mark and Kim, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us, Kevin.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Mark, it looks like you drew the short straw, so I'm going to hand it over to you first. Yeah, I'd love to hear about kind of your own personal business first and some of your experiences from being a business owner.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. I look forward to chatting here this morning. I think, the big thing is I started as a commercial real estate appraiser. And, that's very much a service-driven business. But one day I realized that, it might not be a bad idea to go for a brick and mortar kind of environment. And so I remember driving down one of our county roads one morning, and I suddenly saw all of these sale signs for different lots. And I started thinking, well, that's a great lot. What would I put there? What kind of a business? And somehow coffee shop came up, because at the time we didn't really have a lot of coffee shops in Bailey. And so I decided to go ahead and do a coffee shop. And then I thought, well, since I've taken that leap, the lot next door was also available. And so the first coffee shop was Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee. And then we built a liquor store. Originally, I built the liquor store for the tenant of a close by liquor store, so she'd have a new space. And the challenge was that she became very ill after I built it for her. And so suddenly I was faced with not being a landlord, but suddenly being the owner of a liquor store, which was never really the intention. And then my wife apparently allowed me one more chance to develop something, and I built a self-storage facility. And at that point, my wife said, "That's it, stop," because each one had a different challenge, and I really got to understand. I always joke that as an appraiser, I know theoretically what is supposed to be in the abstract about building a business, being a developer, until you actually are going through that process and building it and finding all the odd things that can happen and the challenges of building it. You really haven't experienced life a lot. But that's really when I became a member of the chamber, because up until that time, my business had been in Denver, and I hadn't really connected that with the business part of the Bailey community. And once I opened the coffee shop, literally the first thing I did was, I need to join the Chamber of Commerce. And so I did, and suddenly became connected to this whole community of business owners up here that really are just trying to, make a living, trying to improve the community. And, it's been a great ride for the last 6-7 years.
That's awesome. Now that's a wide variety of experience. I think we can definitely delve into a little bit more, because once you have it's not just opening one business, but you're seeing it from different sides of different businesses as well. And you alluded to some of those challenges you face that are kind of unique to each one of those businesses that I'm sure have carried forward with you. So right. That's fantastic, man. Kim, kind of same thing over to you. Some of the, the business you own and kind of your experience there.
Yeah. Well, we bought our property up here, a home, as a vacation property back in 2015. It's about 10 years ago. And we'd been coming up, but my husband and I were living in Omaha, Nebraska. That was kind of where our base was. And I owned a business there. I owned an advertising agency. He worked for a health data firm. So when we decided we wanted to retire kind of early, we wanted to move out here. And so we said, well, we're too old to do the extreme sports stuff that Colorado offers, and we'll be bored out of our mind if we do nothing. So what should we do? Well, we had been up here enough that we said, there's nowhere where anybody can really buy even a gift card or anything for anyone. This was back in 2018. So we came up with the idea one night in the hot tub, maybe having some wine or something. We said, what if we open a store? And my husband wanted to make it a cigar store. I was like, no, that's too narrow. So we decided to open a gift store and sell a little bit of a lot. And we weren't sure at first what the market needs really were. So we opened in March of 2019, and we were in a different location, kind of down at 285 in Rosalie at the top of what then was the coffee shack. And we had a very small little space, and we just had a, kind of a smattering of items. So we've been open about 6 years, and we've moved to a much larger location, much larger space. And we probably have, I think, upwards of 2,800 SKUs of different kinds of products. So a significant, it's been a lot of change, but we were able to kind of feel what the market needed, listen to people, meet them, talk about what they wanted. We've made a lot of special orders for people. So it's really kind of evolved in the 6 years we've been in business. So, yep.
Sure. Okay. I guess question for both of you, because, Mark, you said you're out in Denver, and then Kim with you kind of Omaha, coming to Colorado and stuff. What was it about Bailey that kind of really, attracted you to that area specifically, maybe other than some other areas out there?
Well, for the longest time, long ago, I worked for the city and county of Denver, and they had a residency requirement. So in order to keep my job, I had to live in Denver. And I think that rubber band was getting tighter and tighter. And one day, I was very familiar with Bailey. I used to own some land that I don't want to say foolishly bought, but I bought when I was in college because I thought I would build a house there one day. And it was very near Bailey. And so I really knew the area well. And one afternoon, we were visiting my wife's parents with our children, and they lived very close to Bailey. And the kids, as we left, the kids were all asleep in the car. And we thought, okay, well, we want them to stay asleep in the car. Let's just keep driving. And so we thought we'd just drive around, and we drove to the neighborhood we're in presently, where we purchased a home. But we just drove around, and we saw this house for sale. I wanted to get as high up as I could. And I saw this house that just happened to be for sale with an unbelievable view. And I said, okay, let's just buy it. let's just completely change our lives, upend our lives, and buy it. And it was by far the best decision that we ever made, ever.
Oh, sure. And Kim, going from Omaha to Bailey is probably a bigger change for sure. But yeah.
Well, we were coming out to Colorado a lot. My daughter and son-in-law live in Denver. We knew that we wanted a place out here, but we didn't want to be in the city. We didn't want to be in Denver. So we had looked around. We had stayed a whole bunch of Airbnbs, different places. We really liked the area up by Netherland and that area. But as we came down here, the things that were very attractive for us was the kind of the dispersion of the different communities, but yet the accessibility. So you could easily get wherever you needed to get via 285, but then once you got off 285, it was kind of a different experience, right? So we went looking with a real estate agent, and it was one day down here, and we made an offer on a house. We're in the same neighborhood Mark's in. So interestingly enough, but what we were attracted to was the wildlife, the quiet, the fact that while we're fairly close to the city here, this is very unlike many of the tourist towns that are very close to Denver. This is more of a community of residents. So it doesn't have necessarily it doesn't feel like Idaho Springs or some of those other places that are more catered to tourists. That's both a double-edged sword when I talk from the chamber perspective, because we also have a major highway that passes right through our town, right? So, so that's kind of where we ended up here, and we really love it. We're close to things, or fairly close to things, but yet it can be very quiet. And I have a bunch of deer that hang out in my yard all the time, and foxes that come face to face with my husband as he gets out of the hot tub, and all those kinds of things. So
for sure. That's fascinating. I think, being somebody who's not very well versed in business ownership in general, I would think that there's probably a lot of aspiring business owners who think about, where would I want to set up shop? where would I want my location to be? And they're probably thinking, I want it to be in a super busy area. I want the corner lot, where it's right at the intersection of two major roads. So I can get the big sign out there and everything. But you guys kind of alluded to, one, you got the highway going through right there, but also the community of other business owners that are right around you. And it sounds to me like you're all pretty close. So, what is that like, being a small business owner, but, really kind of just talking to and working alongside these other companies around you?
Well, we all share the same economic circumstance, right? I mean,
Right.
we all we all have to be face to face with the fact that tourism only does so much. We also rely on one another. We try. I know Kim has really focused on buying local. Buy from your community, because we always make the line that, well, people tend to turn
North.
left out of our community, head north, and go to other communities like Conifer or even down into Denver. And it's really important that we support our local businesses. And through the chamber, we have monthly meetings where everyone is a business owner, and we have nonprofits as well. But we all share that same economic circumstance, where the nonprofits need the businesses to be vibrant so that they can help to support the nonprofits. But you get to know everyone. You get to know the challenges that we all share together. And I think that's been very helpful as we look at ourselves. How do we run our businesses, but also learn from other people in the community.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I think is something that I've found to be somewhat unique here is that I think there's a co-opetition between the businesses. There's a cooperation. Like, I make sure at our store, we don't carry the same things that Naughty Pine carries or other gift stores carry. We try to have different kinds of merchandise. So we're not really competing with one another, but really more, it's more collaborative. And it also, I think it helps visitors because they see a wider spectrum. Because some of the tourist towns you go into, they all carry the same things. And you see it over and over again. And that's really not true here. It's very different about Bailey. And I think it's because we're cognizant that we've got a community that's fairly tight knit and we want to support each other. Like, I certainly don't want to take business away from somebody else by, I don't want to get into price competition or any of that kind of stuff with them. So, yep.
No, I think that, again, looking at it from the perspective of somebody who is maybe trying to figure out how to be a business owner, and we all see businesses that pop up and within a short period of time fizzle out and close their doors, right? And that idea of really integrating with your community, not just the people in your community, but the other businesses in your community, is something that maybe people don't really think of. And maybe it's a little bit more, it stands out a little bit more in a small community there where we all know each other, and you're all friendly and everything like that. And it's trying to bring up the whole community there. But, what are some of the, other, I guess, ways that you within your businesses kind of work within the community at large, or just business as a whole, as you kind of already been talking about?
Well, as Mark mentioned, the nonprofits, there's a lot of needs in a community like this. We're an unincorporated town, so we have no services. We have no city government. So there's a lot of needs that many nonprofits try and kind of fill some of those gaps, right? Whether it's senior services, it could be, women's protective services, it could be food pantries, it could be, you name it, a bunch of different services. So I think the business community here gives and gives and gives and really tries to help all of these. And as a chamber, I mean, we're encouraging, and there's actually a group that's been formed, kind of a nonprofit collaborative, because it gets to a point where the businesses get asked so much for support that it's like one after another. So they're trying to kind of coordinate efforts a little bit, try and make things a little more efficient. So those are some things that I think the business and nonprofit sectors kind of work hand in hand to try and fill the needs of the community. There's an awful giving spirit among our businesses, but as business people, we can only go so far. At some points, it starts to kind of hurt
Yeah.
So we've all been asked a lot, right, Mark?
Exactly right. And I
Yeah.
think other ways that we try to help in the community, we, as Kim alluded to, we don't have a government, so the chamber is really the only entity that exists in this largely rural environment. And so we put on a lot of the different events that occur during the year. We have a big summer festival called Bailey Days, which is 2 days of music and more than 100 vendors, and that's become very, very popular. We also do a Christmas event, Cowboy Christmas, where we, kind of give back to the community, put on Santa Claus and all sorts of great things, and have great food and great, conviviality. It's worked out really, really well. And we kind of take that role very seriously because, we often joke it's the same 32 people doing everything because, you've got to have people who are willing to volunteer and take up
Right.
a lot of their time, effort, and energy. But ultimately what we do is very fulfilling and satisfying because it's the community that we serve and that we live in. And I think it benefits from our interaction with not only the nonprofits and the businesses, but just even the general community itself.
Right.
Sure.
There's
Definitely.
a couple big initiatives that the chamber has undertaken that are more community centric. In addition, we have a committee called Beautify Bailey, which it is comprised of business people and a couple of residents, and our goal is to, really kind of enhance the overall beauty. We're in a beautiful area, but we've got some situations where some buildings look kind of run down and there's some areas that are overgrown. So this group is kind of focused on, cleaning things up. We've done big cleanups. We've brought in dumpsters and did recycling of 5,000 pounds of paint, which was insane.
Wow.
And tires, and we did electronics, and we do all kinds of things like that. And then we had a group of people who painted an apartment that had kind of become very derelict looking, to kind of give it a fresh face, do a lot of things like that sort of lifts the way the community looks and feels. Another one that kind of helps the community at large is Chance's Scholarship Program, which was started as a committee in the chamber back in 2013, but became a 501c3 nonprofit in 2018. And Chance's works to give Platte Canyon High School seniors a chance at further education, be it trade school, professional development programs, traditional colleges, apprenticeships, whatever it might be. But from 2018, they've awarded about $84,000 worth of scholarships to 60 students.
Wow.
So again, the businesses, we all have these little change jars that are out for that. And we do auctions, we do a variety of different things. So, those are things that unite the community in doing well too. They unite our business community as well. Yep.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like, you find a way to not just come together, as businesses, but through that you're supporting the larger community. And that's just, it's maybe tougher to do in a large town or a large city,
I think
because there's just so much competition. But to hear that, you guys do all those kinds of different things, really, to me, makes it stand out apart from, larger communities. Not to say anything bad about them. It's just, it's almost like, you're forced to, but, you do so much good with it at the same time.
When we kind of are forced to, but we do.
Right.
But I think it surprises people, even some residents. Kevin, do you have any idea how many people live in the Bailey community?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. No.
If you were to guess, what would you think?
3,000.
We're about 10,000. But the reality is our geography is such, and we're so dispersed that you would never know that. And so when people drive through here, they think, well, okay, these guys, Fairplay, only 500 people live in Fairplay, which is weird, right?
Right.
So, but it looks so much bigger. But driving through here, so we're as big as Evergreen population-wise, but we don't look anything like that or feel anything like that. So, that brings a couple challenges in that even our own residents don't realize what's here because we're so dispersed. We have people we've been here 6 years. We have people come in our store. Just yesterday, there was a woman in. I didn't know you were here. I had no idea. I hear that all the time.
It is fascinating. I mean, we actually had to put a sign on our liquor store on the roof that said liquor. Because for people, I had a person come in the store saying, I didn't know, I've lived here 10 years. I didn't know you guys were a liquor store. Like, seriously. But it is, we have to communicate with one another up here because we are dispersed and we're all behind trees. Right? I mean,
exactly.
Environment. So that's why you don't know that there are 10,000 people here. And we have to look at the gaps in the community too. And we've tried very hard. One thing that we're very excited about, we're bringing healthcare to Bailey actually for the first time in a decade, I think, where we've had no doctors in the community. People have had to go to other towns like Conifer, go down to Denver. And what we've been able to do in a partnership, and this really shows how our community works, we partnered with a Denver kind of a street smart rural provider called Stride. We partnered with the local library, and with our Seniors Alliance and with the Chamber to bring up a mobile facility one day a week to test the waters, see what that's like, if there's enough demand. We think there will be. And then if the demand's there, they will schedule more and more time to be available to the community, because we do have a lot of people who don't have good access to healthcare, especially people who might be seniors who don't drive. And how do we get those people to get healthcare, especially preventative healthcare, as well as chronic healthcare? So it's really important. And that's something that literally we've been able to pull together here in the last 2 months. So it's been phenomenal. And they're coming up next week, and we're trying to, get the word out, because I think there are a lot of people that will be very genuinely happy to have that service available.
Oh, I'm sure.
I would say the business owners are significantly more involved in typical, in atypical ways relative to the community than in most other places that I've been in business. So the chamber fills a slightly different kind of role here. But the businesses just really step up to try and help fill those gaps. As Mark was talking about with healthcare, we see these messages all the time. Senior needs a ride. Senior needs a ride. We have no transportation services. So we try to find ways to get people to doctors down the hill or wherever they need to go. We don't have grocery provider delivery, any of that kind of stuff that you would have in the city. No Instacart comes up here, sadly. But, so we have to figure it out. So therefore the businesses do become more of the community that's looked upon by residents to help figure it out.
Right. And I think that leads perfectly into just focusing on the Chamber of Commerce. And we've kind of been talking about it in general here, but both as the president and vice president, what are maybe some of the challenges you faced along the way to kind of getting to the point you are here? I mean, using your business, acumen and experience that you personally have, but have you, any challenges you've had to kind of tie that all together and help bolster the community even further?
Marketing, constant marketing. We have to, I mentioned a little earlier, making sure that our local residents, those 10,000 people, that they actually shop in Bailey, because we do offer a lot of services. Kim's gift shop I would put her gift shop up against any other gift shop I've been to. And it's important that people realize we have these gems. We have some really cool businesses in the community.
Great restaurants. Yep.
Yeah. They only survive though if they have business. And we last year we lost a few businesses, and our job and Kim, it seems it almost becomes a full-time job for her to do the outreach to the community, to come up with innovative ways to ensure that we bring as much volume as possible to the merchants so that they do well, because if they don't, I think we all suffer. And so that's been a huge focus of ours, and it continues to be all throughout the year.
Marketing for sure to residents, but also we have thousands and thousands and thousands of cars that drive through 285 every single day. We're trying to get to the point where we can get more of those to stop. We have been kind of a pass-through community traditionally. Now, we don't want to become a tourist town. That's not our goal. But if we could capture a small percentage of that, like, for example, we have no public restrooms here. If we can get public restrooms built, we can get people to stop off, grab a cup of coffee, maybe look around in a couple of the stores on their way.
Yeah.
So rather than all the money's going to different counties for expenditures and therefore taxes, and we have lower taxes than pretty much anybody in the state. We're at 3.9% sales tax.
Wow.
So if you have an idea what Denver's like, what Conifer,
Oh, yeah.
even Fairplay's what, 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
So if we could get just a small spattering of those people, more of them, to stop through, it would change the trajectories for many of our businesses, because it's very hard to get enough business from our local community to be healthy. Maybe you can survive, but you can't thrive that way. So,
That's right.
and the more our businesses can thrive, for example, Aspen Peak Wine Cellars, which, by the way, if you've never been there, you need to come up. It is a stunning location right on the river with beautiful pergolas, outdoor dining. They have these little cabanas right on the river. It's gorgeous. They have incredible food and incredible award-winning wine. So they got picked up by an influencer last year, a social media influencer, and they called it Bailey Beach. And I'll tell you what, that had such a major impact on Aspen Peak. I said, oh, some of us may have struggled, but Marcel at Aspen Peak killed it last year, So we even had spillover in our parking lot where my business was. So it helped us a little bit because there was waiting lines. But, that kind of word of mouth and that kind of somebody that passes through happens to find these little gems, it makes a huge difference. And granted, some of the people here were not happy about that, because then they couldn't get into the winery because the winery was full and you had to make reservations. And so, some people here didn't necessarily like it, but it made a huge difference for them. They were our business of the year in our Gracie Award last year because they really had a major impact on the community, and kind of on the financials. So, they did really well. We've now got a new Mexican restaurant here. We have a wonderful little mom and pop restaurant called Two Dads, also on the river, which is fairly new, probably last year and a half.
Yep.
Casa Sanchez just opened a Mexican restaurant. We have a wonderful Chinese restaurant. We have a Cutthroat Cafe, which is the epitome of a small town fun cafe. So, there's a lot of things that people just don't see, because unlike other towns that you drive through, you can kind of see it from the highway. We're sort of back off the highway. That's I think if I were to say there's one thing about this town, you don't see it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's all about identifying things too. As Kim said, we were very lucky with Aspen Peak that they got the influencer to be there and broadcast. But what we've been working on, Kim and I have both been working on for since last year, is getting a visitor center, a formal visitor center.
Right.
And I think we're very, very close. We'll have, I believe, if things go right, we'll have one by the spring. And then we'll be able to have those bathrooms that we've been hoping for, and signage, and the ability to get people to stop and say, well, what do you have in this community?
Right.
Because Kim's right. As you drive through, you don't see much. You don't know what's here. No. And we have phenomenal, so many phenomenal businesses, restaurants. We have
recreation,
beautiful national forest with lots of trails to walk and hike. We have the river, which is a stunning, a beautiful amenity to the community. But if you don't tell people about these things,
they don't know.
They don't know.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to just be a place you drive through. As Kim said, we want you to come here, find out all the cool things you can do. And, it's so funny. I tell the story all the time, but I had a banker come up here to look at my property, and he had never seen it. He'd made a loan on it, but he'd never seen it. And he came up and he said, I didn't realize you lived in a resort community. And it's funny, you live here and you don't realize what a wonderful, cool community you really are in. And our job is to make just a few more tourists realize that this is a wonderful place for them to come.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. I'm gonna, first off, you guys can let all the business owners in the area know. I'd love to have each and every one of them up on this podcast.
Well, they would love
help,
that.
Support them that way as well. And just hearing the different stories from all their different perspectives. Bailey just sounds like a fantastic place, not just to live in, but work in as well. So anybody out there who's listening, if you haven't been to Bailey in a while or ever, it might be time to plan a little trip up there, because it sounds like they just got about everything. So
and everything plus a Sasquatch museum.
Yes.
Plus a Sasquatch museum.
And Sasquatch encounters. You could go out camping with them to watch Sasquatch.
Right. I mean, where else? Where else?
There's Wellington Lake down here. We have literally one of the most unique. It's not really just zip lines. It's a whole bunch of things. Like it's this adventure park up in the trees, and it's super cool. We have off-roading. We have trails. There's all kinds of fishing. There's a lot of recreational things to do. And I think the hardcore people looking for something in that category, they know all these little areas, but by and large, the community doesn't, which is why we're excited about the visitors center, so that new residents would know where they live, what's here. Right. I think the one challenge that I think any small town faces this, and I think particularly a small town in Colorado faces this, change doesn't come easy in anywhere, right? And this has been a rural community for a long time. There's some people that have lived here 40, 50 years, so, and then there's a lot of people that have come recently. I think what I saw in census reports was this area, the boom started to really happen after about 2002. And now it's really grown to, in the last 20, 23 years, it's really grown to a much bigger community. We are 2/3, 3/4 of the population of Park County, and Park County is the size of Delaware. So it's not a small county. It's a lot of land. It's a big county, but Bright and Bailey, we're the majority of the population. But a lot of the people are new. They don't know exactly what's here. They don't understand, because you don't get a welcome packet or you don't get a city services directory. That ain't a thing. That's just not a thing. So they kind of have to find their way. And the same thing is with tourists, and, businesses want new residents to find them, and frequent them, as opposed. So if they need a gift, we want them to come downtown or to a gift store here local, as opposed. And our prices, quite honestly, I do a lot of checking because my background is marketing like that. Yeah. Our prices here are every bit as reasonable, if not cheaper, than many parts of the city. So particularly when you add the taxes and everything that you pay in there. So
yeah, definitely.
Yep.
That's fantastic information. And so I think for anybody else who's listening out there, where can they go website wise or anything to, find information through the Chamber of Commerce, or, what's a good place for them to visit?
Bailey-colorado.org. So it's Bailey-colorado.org. I wish we didn't have the hyphen, and I wasn't me. I wouldn't have chosen that. Right. But at there, you can find out about the history. There is a visit page. We are doing a little bit of marketing down in parts of the city with a special landing page called Visit Bailey. And so they know, here's some of the trails, here's some of the businesses, here's their hours, here's their contact information. So we're doing that, working on that.
Okay.
That's right.
Fantastic. Yep. Last question for you guys. Just, any announcements or anything you want people to know of upcoming events or things that you want people to check out there in Bailey, or maybe if you have a favorite spot that you want to shout out or anything like that, hand it over to you guys. So Mark, anything like that?
Yeah, I think the big thing is Bailey Days, the 28th and 29th of June. We are working incredibly hard on that. We have a new location. It used to be on kind of our Main Street area. We've moved it now to one of our historic resorts, Glen Isle, and it's an expanded and enhanced environment. It keeps everyone close in. Before, we always had to have certain parts of the festival in different parts of the city, and you had to cross a highway to get to them. Now we're trying to make it all in one place. We're going to try it out this year, and I think it's going to be phenomenal. But our goal is to make it's a 2-day event, timber tunes, so lots of great bands, awesome. Nested in the trees, and more than 100 vendors. So I think it's going to be great, and that's our big summer event. It's really our big event for the year. So we're meeting tonight to continue moving forward on that. But a lot of planning goes into that, and that's probably the premier event that the Chamber hosts over the course of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes a lot of resources and a lot of time and effort to make that event true. You know, it for a lot of people that live like in west parts of Denver, Littleton,
Mhm.
Lakewood, Highlands Ranch, those areas, we are an easy day trip. This easy
Yeah.
just to come up here, check out the Sasquatch encounter. For anybody who loves that, Glen Isle, where we're doing this, actually has a portal. And there's been
Hmm.
scientists down there. And it's really interesting. And there's been TV programs filmed on it. And Jim Myers and his wife Daphne, who run Sasquatch, Jim is really amazing. So there's so many fun, quirky things. It's not a tourist trip. It's just kind of an
Right.
experience. It's a different kind of
Sure.
experience. We got a great coffee shop. There's great food. There's a historic park right behind our location here, McGraw. Right, it's called McGraw Park. It's got historic railroad train. It's got an initial, or I guess it was one of the early like pergolas from the resort communities, different
Wow.
resort communities. There's all kinds
Yeah.
of fun stuff. In the summer, they're open, I think, every Saturday for tours. And it's very cool, though. They take you in these old cabins and they talk about how people lived. There's so many fun things. So for people that want to get out of the rat race in the city, we're an easy drive, really easy drive.
Sure.
30
Sure.
minutes we're up here from like Lakewood.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
in the winter, sometimes not so well because 285 can get a little, but summer, easy, piece of cake.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, again, I hope to, have more of your businesses up on this podcast and share their stories. But Mark and Kim, thank you very much for
You're welcome.
your time today and sharing all this information, your experiences. You got me wanting to go out to Bailey here real soon myself. So
Come check us out.
you sold me.
All right.
Thanks so very
So,
much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in for another episode of Behind the Small Business, again, brought to you by Centennial State Insurance Agency. My name is Kevin Dandino, and we will see you all next time. Take care, everyone.